Hey there, you're tuned in to MEA Worldwide. I'm your host, Elena Jordan, and today I am sitting down with Louis Ozawa. Now, you play Joe on the new series Hunters on Amazon Prime. Incredible series. Tell us a little bit about your character and what it's like working on this show.
Uh, Hi, I'm Louis. I play Joe Mizushima, who's a traumatized Vietnam veteran. And he is at his lowest point when Meyer Offerman, Al Pacino's character, brings him into this ragtag group of hunters. And so that's where the kind of series begins.
Part of what I love about this show, too, is because it's a premise that is, if you just read the premise, it seems like it could be something very dark and very gritty, but it's this very perfectly executed dark comedy. Your comedic timing on this is incredible. How do you prepare for a role like this one that has these moments of the quiet reflection to then just the big over the top moments?
Wow, thank you. I never thought of my parts as that funny, but
I love it.
Thank you. Well, it helps when your foil is Josh Radnor. Yeah, it's really fun playing with him. We have a very nice rapport, and our characters are kind of antagonistic yet loving to each other. And yeah, it's been great watching him and working with him. And prior to this, my other show was Kidding, and that was my kind of first foray into comedy. And I'm starting to really like it. It's not really my wheelhouse per se, but yeah, it's fun. He has a more understated humor. Yeah.
I do have to say, talking about Kidding, you have some of the funniest scenes I've ever seen in any show ever. This is kind of the same kind of the humor where you have this really serious moment, like with the puppet show that I'm obviously talking about, where it's this really dramatic scene where, you're slaying your own demons and be your own self. And then this reveal.
Yeah.
What was your reaction when you got the script and you saw, okay, this is going to be what I'm doing in this scene? And what was it like filming that?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was funny because, I was a guest star on that show. And, I'd shot, we'd been shooting previous episodes, but all the regulars were getting the scripts already, and the DP was getting, and all the producers, and like, oh my God, wait till you read the next script. I'm like, what? Tell me. And they're like, no, sorry, we can't tell you. I'm like, come on. And people would walk by and be like, and I was like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, you're gonna love it. Don't worry about it. And I kept getting strange, like, kind of requests from the costume department or whatever, and asking, like, trying to kind of skirt around the issue of possible nudity or simulated nudity, and the whole discussions regarding the particular puppet and all the kind of grooming that's necessary around the puppet was an interesting conversation.
I love that everybody else knew before you, and then we're just rubbing it in before you even knew.
Hair and makeup have to be in on that conversation, and they're like, well, they need to prepare an episode before, and they have to ask me uncomfortable questions about my grooming.
What was it like on set? Because I feel like if I was Catherine Keener in that scene, I wouldn't be able to get through it. I would just be cracking up too hard. So
I think Catherine's used to pretty outrageous circumstances, but the most probably vulnerable position I've ever been in as an actor is lying on my back with this puppet over my nether regions and having, I don't know if you know about this, but facial hair, so your hair here is the hair department's kind of jurisdiction, but anything below the neck or on your face is makeup. So I remember the makeup person having a bag of hair, curly-ish hair, on set just in case. Not apparently, I'm not the hairiest person in the world. It wasn't apparent. It didn't seem like I was naked enough, so she had to come on and do some. Add some hedges, I guess, to the scene.
That makes that scene even funnier now. Like, that is hilarious.
I remember the DP walked by and he's like, "So you want to be in show business, huh?"
Now, what I love about that character too, you act in multiple languages. You're fluent in Japanese, and that
Yes.
are you actually
Yes.
fluent in
I
Japanese in
am.
real
I
life
grew
as
up
well?
speaking Japanese and English in the house. Yeah.
So, was this the first time that you've gotten to act in both languages, or had you done so before?
Not the first time, but this was. It's interesting because no, it's not the first time, but this is definitely the most kind of extensive, I guess, that I've had to do, and I love the conceit that when they're talking through the puppets, not Joe, I'm sorry.
You're already getting to hunter's mentality, like we're jumping
Yeah.
to Joe.
Pickle-san, yeah, well, we're here to talk about hunters, but anyway, Pickle-san can speak fluently, and that was kind of an interesting thing that took kind of a long time to conceptualize, actually. It was conversations with Dave, the creator of that show, with Michel Gondry and Catherine Keener and the director of the episode. It wasn't really quite certain exactly how we were going to pull it off. And initially, they wanted me to speak in the director had an idea of having me speak in a Japanese accent, and I said, well, that's not really what I signed up for, and it's not exactly the magic of the show. And I think when they're talking to each other, they're talking to each other through this poetic world, through these puppets fluently at each other, right? Like it's just they're talking heart to heart. There's nothing impeding their communication. And so it took actually, this is unheard of in TV, but we actually stopped shooting that day and we reshot on another day.
Oh, wow.
Which was really cool, yeah.
Oh, so what were
Yeah.
kind of the differences between them? Was it just kind of moving that, having it, the tonal change completely?
Well, no, what
or was
actually
it-
happened, we decided that our mouths weren't going to move and we were going to record the dialogue ahead of time. And so then they would play back the audio while we were doing the scene. So we'd take one pass doing the dialogue and then another pass with the dialogue playing over a loudspeaker, and then we would operate the puppets.
Wow, that's so interesting.
While, with the intention through our eyes and through our kind of emoting, but yeah, essentially all the talking was happening through the puppets. Yeah.
I'm glad they reshot that because that's some of my favorite parts of it. Is this,
Thank you,
the
thank you.
idea of this
Yeah.
communication that bridges any
Yeah.
sort of language barrier as well.
Ultimately, I thought like it was one of the kind of coolest scenes, I guess, until Hunters, that I've ever shot. Yeah.
Now, talking about hunters too, you
Yes,
have some
yes, yeah.
amazing scenes in this. Now, we've already talked about how the comedic side you've kind of eased into, but
That's right.
your background is we've seen you in Born Legacy, we've seen you in these big action movies, and now you're kind of getting to blend the two
Yeah.
on this show as
Yeah,
well. So,
yeah.
what has been your approach coming into this series versus some of the work that you've done in the past, and has it changed at all?
Well, I'm a classically trained theater actor, and so
Yeah, you have your MFA at Brown.
In the
which-
past, I was trained to speak on, but it just so happened that my first job ever was Predators, and that became kind of. It led to a lot more strong and silent, kind of deadly characters, which is wonderful. It started my career, but I've been dying to kind of show other parts of my acting abilities. And when I read the pilot, actually in the pilot you don't get much of a sense of any of the hunters. We're kind of but when I also auditioned with episode 7, which I'm sure you haven't seen yet, but that. It was such a meaty kind of scene, and it delved into the psyche of this guy. And Joe, unlike a lot of other characters I've played, is an American. He's a patriot. He's a soldier. He's complicated, and this was something I'd never seen. I've never gotten to play really. Just an American, someone closer to myself. Someone who has vulnerability, someone who has a back life, a backstory, all of these things, and also gets to kick ass and be funny. Wow,
Yeah.
I was like, sign me up. In fact, when I got the script, I said to my manager, and this is the one. I really feel like this is it. Like, this is the best pilot I've ever read. This is the best Asian American character I've ever read. I really want this, and I have a great feeling about this role.
And part of what I love about this too is that it does have these great diverse characters, and they have representation that we haven't seen as much on television as we really should.
Absolutely.
So why do you feel that this series, especially with kind of how it's relating to things that are more topical today, why do you feel that this is a good time for this series to come out?
I think we're at a tipping point. I'm not like a media kind of researcher or anything like that, but just anecdotally from what I've seen, we've gotten to some critical mass, and we've gotten to a place in our society in America where Asian Americans are starting to be perceived as Americans and not just immigrants or people who speak in accents or strong and deadly martial artists. On the surface, I think what people will see in episodes 1 to 5 are might be that, but the beautiful thing about this show is it's always subverting kind of your perceptions, and that has everything to do with David, our creator. It has everything to do with Jordan Peele, and it's like, let's set up a kind of, initially you're seeing the world through Jonah's eyes. Jonah's a young man, and he's being thrust into a diverser world, a darker world, but he's starting to see an adult world and seeing the complexities of all these characters. So his initial kind of impressions of these people are kind of like comic book heroes, but as you start to peel away the layers, you start to see the human being underneath all of that.
Even more of a reason why it's perfect for you, because you've played comic book characters for Marvel and DC in the past as well, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which is pretty cool. Loved Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Supergirl.
I love it all. But I really do think what David has created is unique. It's these are superheroes that exist in the real world. They can't fly, or they can't teleport or anything, or conjure fire from their hands. But they are superheroes.
They're like their own kind of Justice League, but more Revenge League.
Yeah.
And
deeply flawed, but yes.
But part of what I think that audiences are going to love so much about this show, and why I think the show is going to be just an astronomical success, is because it's so fun to watch. Every scene, even these dark, hard-hitting scenes where, you feel these intense emotions, then immediately it goes into something where you get wrapped in it and you're like, now I'm just here for these guys. So what was the most fun aspect for you on set?
Aside from working with Al Pacino? No. I do think actually the scenes that I have with Josh and Tiffany, those are kind of the funniest, like kind of best odd couple moments, and we'll be able to pivot from, deeply comedic and all of a sudden flipping on a switch to very scary and terrifying, or absolutely serious and vulnerable, and you get to see everyone's vulnerability and comedic side, just like in real life. We don't walk through the world trying to be serious, or it's just intolerable to see a drama that has absolutely no comedy or no humor to it. It doesn't have to be ha-ha funny, but for me, we try to diffuse these moments with humor, and it's when you're unable to diffuse it, then you see the real drama.
And what was it like working with Al Pacino, and what was your reaction when you found out that you were going to be working with this legend?
I can't speak to everybody, but for me, growing up, I wanted to be an actor because of the movies. I didn't grow up seeing theater, and at that time, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino were the biggest stars in the world. And for me, as an Asian American who had no kind of role models on screen, for some reason, these Italian Americans were the coolest things to me. They were playing the underdogs, the immigrants, and they were the leading men, and that was really cool to me. And to be on set with a legend like that is really cool. And to be honest, even at his age, he's a real generous actor and acting partner, and he's artistic, and he's fearless. He's not afraid to make a fool of himself or make choices, and I think that's something that every actor should aspire to.
What would you say is the most valuable thing that you learned on set working with him in particular?
it's just that. Stay open, stay generous. You know, I can remember one scene actually where my character is in the background. He doesn't say anything throughout the scene, or a few words throughout the scene, but it's the one pivotal moment you see a switch in Joe's perception of Meyer. And we were rushing to get through the day. We were running behind, and the director wanted to move on, and Al was like, "Hey, I think you need to get Louis' coverage here. You need to get Joe's reaction to what I'm doing, because that's important for the story." So his instincts are like always spot on, you know. He might not be able to articulate necessarily what it is that's bothering him in the moment, but he's done it so many, he's told these stories hundreds, thousands of times. It's those instincts, you know, and you always kind of trust your instincts.
Was there anything that you were surprised watching the series versus filming it, that the way that it appeared on screen was somewhat different than you were anticipating? Because it only wrapped like 5 months ago, right? Like it was pretty recent.
Yeah, and there's still parts of the show that I haven't seen actually.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, I've seen as much of you as you've seen actually. But the first episode is a movie. I mean, it's a movie, right? Like I didn't expect for it to look and feel that kind of immersive and that kind of epic in scale. So this show is bigger in scope than one can imagine. And you know, as the hunters, we only see ourselves. We're privy to our scenes, but we haven't seen what Dylan's doing. We don't know what Lena's doing. We have no idea what Greg is doing, or Jerica for that matter. And it's not until like kind of later on that our worlds kind of collide. But it's pretty cool to see all that stuff. They're amazing. They're just chilling and funny and hilarious and all that. Yeah.
Well, it is an absolutely incredible show, and you're incredible, and thank you so much for coming in and talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
You guys can check out Hunters on Amazon Prime, and where can everybody keep up with you online as well?
On social media, you can see me on Instagram. I'm more of an Instagram kind of guy. Louis Ozawa, LOUISOZAWA.
Thank you again. And
Thanks
again,
so much.
tune into Hunters on Amazon and check out all of our celebrity interviews at MEA Worldwide. That's MEAWW.com. Until next time, I'm Elena Jordan. Have a good day.